I made a video about this movie yesterday and why nobody likes this movie, why nobody talks about this movie, and why this movie basically became forgotten despite, M getting a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, I'm going to tell you that this movie is completely awful. Yep, the movie that got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes is completely awful. Which is nobody's surprise because modern comedy just completely sucks. And this movie is infamous why modern comedy fails to be funny. So the so-called most of the comedy in this movie is sex jokes. Literally, all the comedy in this movie is sex jokes. I know people love to lag on so many, animated movies for over the line on poop jokes, fart jokes, and those types of jokes. But when those jokes are done correctly, like in Conker's Bad Fur Day, they can actually be pretty funny. That's why the Great Mighty Pooh is so memorable as a character as well. Because, first of all, I don't think people were expecting in a movie about a squirrel that gets drunk to be fighting a giant pile of poop. Yes, we can't say the S word. Thanks, YouTube. But Booksmart is just not a funny movie. Just like a lot of modern comedy movies, this movie fails at comedy because they don't want to offend people. Okay, this movie tries, even though it's an R-rated movie, they still don't want to offend it. It's more and woke comedy and woke humor just fails. It is not funny. Woke comedy and woke humor is not funny. Okay, they do not. People just do not understand that woke comedy is not funny. I wonder how much these bigger YouTubers are paid to give this movie a good score because this movie is not funny. Okay, I had more fun. I had more laughs of from stuff like The Bad Guys or Minions: The Rise of Gru than this movie. There were only a handful of jokes. I mean, a handful of jokes that were actually funny. And guess what? They were at least trying something with the jokes and at least those jokes. But most of the jokes, they, are either sex jokes, which all of them are not funny, or just, yeah. It's just not a good movie. The main two characters are pretty unlikable. Just like May Wen Wee, we get two May Wen Wees. Yay! And the difference between something like this and Breakfast Club, all of the characters are likable. All of the characters are there for a reason. Then we have movies like Booksmart and Neighbors. Neighbors is not a funny movie. It is a movie that is just not funny. They try to tell jokes, but it isn't. We also have the movie Blockers, which had a couple of funny jokes, and that was it. It was alright, but it was still better than this movie. Because Blockers had some praise to it by the critics, but not a universal praise. Every film critic was like, oh my god, Booksmart feels like a classic. Booksmart's a classic comedy. Booksmart's an amazing movie. Even though they've realized that there's actual good comedy movies that were made back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Back when comedy actually was funny. And Booksmart is not funny because modern comedy, which is woke comedy, isn't funny. I'm surprised they didn't have a joke about Donald Trump in the movie because they could have easily put it in, and the critics will probably give it 100% because there was a joke about Donald Trump in the movie. But this is just your average movie. This is just not a good movie. The storyline is basically they go to a party and they do stupid stuff that teenagers do. Of course, I can't really relate to this stuff because I never really went to other people's parties. And basically, the film ends with, one of the girls going to jail because they did bad things at the party that stupid teenagers do. Really, we have done these types of movies before, but apparently, this is the good one. Apparently, this is supposed to be the good one, and all the rest are not good. And again, these are the same people that have the audacity to give actually funny movies like Ace Ventura When Nature's Call, The Mask, Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, worse scores than this. And of course, Kung Pao gained like a 10% on, Rotten Tomatoes, not understanding what a parody is. But don't worry, this was supposed to be a parody of Superbad, gets a 96% because it's woke. One of the girls is a lesbian. 10 out of 10 movie. They love charity? 10 out of 10 movies. They make sex jokes about lesbians? 10 out of 10. Oh, wait. Any type of joke, any, actual funny joke? Nope, 0 out of 10. It's not a funny movie. Okay, and comedies for movies in 2019 and onward, and comedy movies haven't really been good for the past 10 years. So movies that came out in 2010s that are funny are not really that funny as well. It's just modern comedy just seems to just miss all the time. Every time I try to watch a modern comedy movie, sometimes the stories are actually good enough to be funny. But the few movies that I found funny were a couple animated movies. I actually found the Sexy movie pretty funny. There were some comedic scenes in Green Book, Shazam, and hey, yes, even Minions as well. But Booksmart is not one of those movies. It is one of those movies that are not funny as well. And yeah, Booksmart is just we can just add it to modern comedy syndrome. Back in the 1990s, 1990s, you had a lot of funny movies. Happy Gilmore, The Mask, Jumanji. There's Something About Mary. You had a lot of funny movies. Classic comedy movies that came out. These movies hold up to this day. Gremlins 2. A lot of these movies hold up to this day because they're actually funny. Even stuff like Austin Powers is funnier because I never watched James Bond. But Austin Powers, even that was pretty funny. Space Jam. A lot of these older movies, older comedies are funny. And it's funny they're all considered worse movies than Booksmart. They're all considered lesser experiences than Booksmart. Stuff like Home Alone, stuff like, Groundhog Day, and stuff like, Ace Ventura, and its sequel, Infinite when Nature Calls. Those movies are actually funny. Booksmart is not funny. That's the difference between that stuff and Booksmart. Also, they kind of made a pseudo-sequel to Booksmart called Plan B, which I wonder how bad that movie is. But don't worry, it's probably made by the same people, too, that made Booksmart. The same people who thought making it with... This movie's probably also about 100 sex jokes with 2 white girls as the main characters. Also, in Booksmart, the main characters, there wasn't a lot of diversity in the main characters. For such a woke movie, there wasn't a lot of diversity. So, there was definitely a much better movie. There are definitely much better movies in terms of comedy movies than Booksmart as well. Maybe I just have a bad taste in humor, but it just seems that modern comedy isn't funny. I'm of course, I'm not the only person who does not think modern comedy isn't that funny. Yes, there are a lot of movies that come out recently that have good jokes, but a lot of the comedy movies that come out nowadays are not good. And there's a reason why they're not good. It's because modern comedies, especially anything released after the election of Donald Trump, tried to be so woke and tried to out-woke each other that it fails. And that's why comedy has died. Okay? It kind of died after 2018. Modern comedy really isn't funny anymore. More. And really, instead of actually laughing at all the jokes of Booksmart, I was just cringing the whole time throughout the movie. That is not a good comedy movie. A good comedy movie should be for someone cringing the whole time, waiting to see when the movie is over. And yes, there are some movies where I barely watched them, like The Neighbors, but I still didn't like The Neighbors. I thought the movie was just painfully annoyed the whole time as well. But yeah, modern comedy just fails, and Booksmart is just inexpensively of why modern comedy fails. And if you want to watch a good coming of age movie, definitely watch a movie like Breakfast Club, not Booksmart, because Booksmart is not. Unless you like sex jokes that are not funny, because sometimes even sex jokes can be funny, but Booksmart is just the whole movie is the same type of jokes over and over and over and over and over again. I bet the only types of movies, and yes, people who are woke, woke college students, they probably love Booksmart. They probably think Booksmart is this amazing masterpiece. But again, I'm not a college. I never went to college, so I probably don't find Booksmart a funny movie. So yeah, as well. So yeah, overall, Booksmart is not a movie that is worth watching. There are definitely much better comedy movies that came out in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s that were actually funny as well. Well, back when comedy was comedy. Yep. Back when comedy was comedy. And also, it doesn't help that you can make the main characters actually likable. Oh, that is very hard for Annapurna Pictures to do. But it's also made that Detroit movie that nobody watched. It just seems that Annapurna Pictures, it's just an independent studio that just doesn't make good movies. It's just like they make weird movies that nobody wants to watch. And that's why the movies are so obscure. Because nobody wants to watch those type of movies. Annapurna Pictures is basically just, let's just make woke movies and see how much money they make. And of course, the critics will love our woke movies as well. Well, it just seems that they will try to go for a certain type of audience, the woke audience. There's a reason why a lot of for example, a lot of funny movies have similar scores. Because of course, the more critical people will love the types of movies like Booksmart, but I hate movies like Ace Ventura because it's childish humor. And we gotta watch more movies of more mature humor. Well, Booksmart is just a failure of modern comedy. And we already know how bad modern comedy is. There's whole articles dedicated to why most comedy movies suck nowadays. And comedy sucks and how we can fix it. Well, I can see, how do we fix modern comedy? Well, maybe stop wasting the goddamn Twitter and make movies and don't be afraid to offend people. Maybe that's how you make a good comedy movie. Good, for example, Blazing Saddles is a brilliant comedy movie. Because Blazing Saddles isn't afraid to offend people. Stuff like Ace Ventura isn't afraid to offend people. Most comedies came out in the 1980s, 1990s, and yes, the 2000s, wasn't afraid to offend people. They weren't afraid to offend certain groups of people. Yes, it could be sexist and racist, but stuff like Blazing Saddles, they are afraid to offend people because they know it's just a joke. And stuff like Monty Python, they are not afraid to make jokes that are actually funny. That can actually land and actually do good jokes. So obviously, Booksmart isn't the why modern comedy movies suck syndrome. The storyline is a typical, college movie. It really isn't. The plot isn't really anything special. It is similar to various other college movies where the main characters go to a party, the party goes wrong, either the main characters get arrested or one of the characters get arrested, and basically they have to get themselves out of jail. It really is not a complex plot, and the two main characters are not very smart and execute their plans very poorly as well. And let's not forget the most cringe part of the movie when they were in the car and they ask to play the playlist, and the playlist is full of moldy. Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, what the beep? What the hell was this? This is supposed to be a amazing comedy? And yeah, this movie specializes. Why do modern comedies movies suck nowadays? It is because the world is becoming too PC. They don't want to offend certain groups of people. They don't want to offend Twitter with their movies. They don't want to offend certain groups of people with their movies. Basically, 1990s produced some of the best original comedy movies out there. As well, late 2000 was probably the best time when we got decent comedies like Zombieland. Yeah, Zombieland and its sequel were pretty funny. And the thing is, Zombieland 2, the reason why Zombieland 2 worked so well, Zombieland Double Tap, was because it was more of the same type of comedy. Okay? If you want to watch a good comedy, you have tons of good ones out there. You have Blazing Saddles, you have anything made by Jim Carrey in the 90s, you have Zombieland and its sequel, which also came out the same year as Booksmart, and you have so many funny cartoons, so many funny movies. Let's look up funny movies, 1990s like I did, and you'll find a gold mine of actually funny movies. And of course, everybody's taste in humor is different. So you may not like Ace Ventura or Pet Detective, but you'll like something else from that era. Because there's something for everybody in the 90s, these 80s, and 2000s for comedy movies as well. Well, we can just hold on to hope that outside of animated movies, comedy can actually be good again. Again, sometimes they do have funny movies like your Shazams of the world, and of course your Sonic movies, and of course, a movie like Good Boys. I actually thought Good Boys was a pretty funny movie. Good Boys reminded me of South Park. That's why I liked Good Boys. It was basically like South Park. Okay, and that's why Good Boys was funny. Captain Underpants is a geniusly funny movie. You still do have funny movies, but there's not a lot of comedies are not funny. That's basically what I'm saying. They're too PC and they try not to offend anybody whatsoever. The reason why it works with animated movies is that animated movies, they're for everybody. Okay? But stuff like Booksmart, they try not to offend anybody whatsoever. And it's just too PC and, woke comedy is just not funny. Okay? It is not funny. Okay? Like, people love to rag on movies for putting fart jokes in the movies and stuff, and poop jokes, but Booksmart is just not a funny movie. It's just as funny as watching Jimmy Kimmel's modern Jimmy Kimmel. Once again, Jimmy Kimmel is not funny either, because Jimmy Kimmel tells the same types of jokes, but they're actually even worse than this movie, because it's political humor, but talking about how much he hates Trump and making fun of Trump. Like, nobody gives a shit about, like, Trump is no longer president and he's still making jokes about Trump. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel is not funny, Booksmart is not funny, and modern comedy overall isn't funny. Maybe that's why nobody remembers Booksmart, because it's not a good movie. And that's why most people don't like this movie at all. And why modern comedy sucks. I'm not the only person who probably agrees with this sentiment of comedy nowadays. Goodbye.